Hello and welcome to the Women Creating Wealth 10K in 10 Days Challenge. We hope you will enjoy this exclusive content that we've created with you in mind, and we hope that it might help shift your own money consciousness, money stories, and your thoughts around what just might be possible for you. So we invite you to come along, and if you would like to help us with our own 10K in 10 Days challenge, we would love if you would shop amongst our services and our products. We have memberships for enjoying family photo sessions and family art. Every once in a while, we have a few mini session events that are available to the public, and we have a beautiful guided self-love meditation and a gorgeous, warming, comfy chamomile and cinnamon tea that you can pair with your self-love meditation. So enjoy having a look around, enjoy shopping and treating yourself, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi everyone, this is Ariana here from Wealth Ed Photography, and I'm joined by Gaby Abrams once more. If you've listened to the podcast, then you might know that we did an episode with Gaby, and I highly recommend it. I'll link it to this episode as well so you can enjoy it. But today we're talking about all things money, and Gaby's amazing for this because she does RTT sessions around clearing money blocks. She has a new program called Money 5D, and she has her own journey that she's been through with money, which we're going to talk about today. So welcome, Gaby. It's so great to have you back again.
Oh, I'm so happy to be back. I'm so excited.
I was wondering actually if we could talk about sort of the beginnings and the root history of your family and how that has influenced your wealth journey.
Yeah. So my grandparents are Cuban. They came like in the 60s, and the story was always like, we came with nothing. Right? It was a dictatorship, so they kind of left with, they left all their belongings, their house, their everything. And then but it was like this really beautiful, we created this, right? And then we created this and we created that. And I think that I always, it wasn't until I started doing that money work that I really realized like the effect that had had on me for my whole life, how I perceived money and success as being this thing like you're going to have it and then it's going to be taken away from you and then you get to build it again, and this cycle, right? And also this idea of, growth comes from struggle, and that feeling of, in order to, grow or increase my income or whatever, there has to be like some, there had to be an antagonist, essentially, right? There has to be like an antagonist, like whether the antagonist is like an event or a person or whatever, myself, right, is who it ended up being most of the time. But this feeling that like, when your back's against the wall, that's when you start, you really learn what you're made of.
Yeah. And so how has that changed since you've gone on your wealth creation journey, your money journey, and built a different relationship with money? Like, how has your relationship had to change in order to make the flow of abundance easier and more steady for you?
It's really interesting because for me, money was so much. I always walk my clients through this exercise where I always have them define, what is money to you? Money is, and then I'm like, now remove money from that, and that is your block. And for me, money meant safety and security, right? And so it really became a question of, where do I feel that I'm not safe and secure? And the answer was like inside of myself, right? Always. And I think that it really opened me up to, really learning more about like nervous system regulation, and really starting to believe, once I started feeling really good and I started doing the subconscious work and I started feeling okay all the time, being okay with that, right? And not feeling like the other shoe was going to fall, was going to drop, or that, I was delusional and this was all like made up in my head, right? And everything was actually really bad. And I was really confused. All of these like little mindset hurdles, really, really like working through them and realizing that what I could create from a place of groundedness and centeredness and alignment was so much more powerful than the ups and downs that I was so used to.
Yeah. Was there ever a fear that without that antagonist or without that I guess, extra hurdle to overcome to motivate you to rise above? Like, were you ever worried that maybe you wouldn't go as far as you desired because you didn't have that hurdle in front of you to get over? Or how did that shift?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see it, with a lot of my clients, we're also where there's this idea that like, I am so much more efficient when I need to be. Right. And so that kind of leads to like that feast or famine cycle, right? Because you tell yourself like, well, right now I don't need it. I don't need to be showing up. I don't need it. And then what happens is that it comes to a point where you do need it. And then you're like, oh, gotta do it, gotta sell, gotta, whatever. And what I've noticed is like creating from a place of not needing it is so much funner and easier. And, you can show up without the pressure attached to it, and you can have fun and you can enjoy yourself. But it definitely took so much relearning.
Yes.
To get there.
I hear you on that one. And I have a question for people who are wondering if there's a possibility for money to exist separate from what a lot of people call the woo, the energetics of money. Like, can it just exist separate to that? Or is it just intrinsically a part of that? And there's no
I don't know. That's such a good question. That's an excellent question, because for me, like understanding the energy of money has made such a big difference for me. And not just understanding the energy of money. I'm not like super like, money flow, but really understanding the energy blockages within ourselves that keep us taking micro actions that are not aligned with making money. Right.
Yes.
Because I don't think it's all, I think that there's a lot of, when we talk about manifestation, so much neuroscience to it and so much science to it, really understanding how our brain works and really understanding how what you believe and what you think leads you to take action that's consistent with your beliefs, and how that produces results that are inconsistent with what you desire.
Yes.
And so I'm not sure, I think that that's such a good question. I don't think I want it to be for me.
Yeah.
I think is the answer, right? For me personally, I don't want it to be, having a lot of money without having that spiritual fulfillment to it.
Yes. Yeah. I was sitting down and chatting with one of my mentors for the podcast, and he has done tremendous things. And I asked him, what if anything had to change along the way? And he said nothing about him changed, but yet the money was changing. And I don't know. Realistically, I think we change every day. We can't not change. And yet that threw me for a loop, because I'm like, oh my gosh, is there something that I'm missing? Is there something that maybe I need to detach from? But I came to the same conclusion as you, is that regardless, I want the spiritual journey and I want the changes. So if money is part of that, and if that's leading me on my spiritual growth, then I'm happy for it to be all enmeshed in there together.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I got with that too.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's really led me. So funny. I was talking to one of our other friends, and she was saying, she's like, we all have that one thing that we need the angels and aliens and whatever else to like help us figure out. Right. And she's like, for me, that's money. And for me, it was also money,
Yeah.
and I was thinking yesterday, why, right? Why, as like someone who is, competent enough in other areas, like why money was harder. And I really landed on, because it was something that I didn't talk about as a kid, right? It was something that was only talked about, like avoiding it, right? Go to school and get a graduate degree so that your life will be easier, and there was never that conversation about what is easier. Does that mean, more money? And is it true that going to school and getting a graduate, what are we working towards? There is no real understanding or conversation around money that went on. And I don't think that's unusual. I think that that's, when we go back to where we were when we were growing up as a society and everything, it was like, you did not talk about that. You didn't talk about money and politics. And I feel like now that's all anybody in my world talks about. I'm like, nobody set me up for this future.
Well, What do you think changes for women specifically? Because we already have like motherhood wounds, we have the witch, like witch wound and all of those types of things. So our voice in speaking out is already sometimes challenging. And when we pair that with having traditionally not spoken about money growing up, or maybe not in ways that were supportive, how do you think it changes things whenever women are given the space and the freedom to actually speak about money and all aspects of money?
I think we have so much to work through, so much more than men. And here's something that I've noticed, like with, my clients that are a little bit further along, right? That are not just starting their business, that are actually in a place where their business sustains them, is that I think as women, we've never been prepared for that.
Yeah.
We've never been prepared for, the responsibility that comes with making money in the same way that men have. And probably like on the contrary, we've been taught that there's like, that we're more lovable when we need somebody, or that, being taken care of is an expression of love. And I think that it leaves a lot of us feeling very confused, right? Like, how do we step into that role for our family? Whereas men, maybe had that in their own family where the father was the provider and they came home and they felt taken care of thanks to their father, or they saw it on television, right? And when you look at like what we saw represented in media, women who were self-sufficient, it was always, the single mom narrative, and she was always struggling and things were harder. And, she really couldn't take so much care of herself or her kids, it was kind of like that Gilmore Girls parentification kind of thing. And it's really interesting to now step into this new reality where we get to be moms and we get to run our households. And what does that look like, right? What does the masculine and the feminine look like? Yeah. And I always say, I really think it's like one of the greatest sins of the patriarchy to tell us that going out and making money was masculine. Because I think that it really led us down this path where, working was seen as the masculine thing, and being at home and taking care was the feminine. And there's really nothing intrinsically masculine or feminine about either one of those things. Like going out to an office job is not really providing in the sense that we need providing. We need, when we talk about that, like that support from our partners. And by the same token, like making money doesn't make us less of a caretaker, right?
Yeah,
let's really interesting.
I want to actually go from there about the patriarchy too, because I think that's another thing that we've been taught wealth creation from a masculine viewpoint, from how to do it from a male's perspective. But what do you think is different from creating wealth as a female, or maybe feeling into that feminine energy?
I think the main difference is like the collaborative aspect of women's wealth, where I think that it really is that we're creating almost like a women's wealth microeconomy, where there is this money that's flowing. I always think it's like the things that change your life, right? Like the moments. And I was watching that show Locked Up Abroad one time.
Yes.
and it was like a couple that had vacation together. They had just met. And the guy, met someone at a bar who was like, "Oh, I'm going to go away to South America. You want to come?" And he was like, "Oh my gosh, really?" And then of course it was like a drug smuggling trip, and she kind of wanted like just someone to come for the security aspect. And so it was like a British couple who ended up in jail in Peru, I think. And the men's jail, they showed the poor guy, they like took away their passport, so he was still in jail like years and years later. And the men's jail was like the worst thing that you can possibly imagine, right? Like murders, like knifing, it was like so dangerous, so violent. And then they show the women's jail, and it was like most of these women were incarcerated because they had been involved in something that a man had done, first of all. But theirs was like a village. It was like all these women did crafts and like shared their crafts, right? And you could like barter and trade, and they had created this like little tiny microeconomy in there. And it really got me thinking about how different women and men are in terms of and how sad it is that we have all of this conditioning, these sister wounds that keep us from really, really embracing that, and how beautiful that could be.
Yeah, it took me actually becoming a mother to really understand more of the feminine side of myself and to operate in a way that welcomed that rather than pushing it
Yeah.
away. And it's
Mhm.
been life-changing.
Yeah.
So amazing. I'm wondering for you, if I know that you read Rachel's book as well, which is why I'm putting on this whole challenge in the first place, which is
Mhm.
We Should All Be Millionaires, for anyone who doesn't know,
Mhm.
that's the name of her book. Um, were there any major take-home messages that you took from the book that have stuck with you?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite was like when she talked about broke ass decisions,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And really realizing it really is about those decisions that you're making on a daily basis. And there are decisions that are driven, right? It's like what we were talking about at the beginning, right? That are driven by your beliefs. If you don't believe it's possible for you, you're going to be making decisions that are aligned with lack and not abundance.
yes,
But for women, I think so many of these broke ass decisions come up around taking care of other people and what our role needs to be like in the household, or and Denise, who we both love, always has that
yes.
conversation about, like, she's like, my money is much better spent not cleaning my house, right? When it comes to earning, if I'm getting paid this per hour and I'm spending hours cleaning my house, it doesn't make sense, that trade-off. But I think it's really hard for us as women to wrap our mind around that.
Yeah, but it's been amazing for me to have help with childcare, cooking and cleaning in
Mhm.
my home. It has changed my life and it's
Yeah.
changed it for the better. And I resisted it for so long,
Mhm.
one, because it involved someone living in the home with us. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to have to be on my game. I'm going to have to like
Yeah.
be perfect. And it's like, that's
Yeah.
not the reality of it. The reality
Yeah.
of it, though, is that I am a better person through having the
Mhm.
help. And that was what I didn't
Mhm.
expect. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely, absolutely. And we all deserve, to be taken care of and feel that support, right? We're so much more powerful when we do have, which I think is another thing that we aren't taught, and kind of goes contrary to how we grow up. This idea that, like, we're so much more powerful when we can do all of these things on our own, when we're this superwoman,
yes.
when nobody's supporting us and it's like our back against the wall. It's that same narrative, same thing with money, right? And that's just not true. It's just so much easier to do things when you feel supported and loved and seen.
Absolutely. What are, just to kind of close it out and wrap it all up, what are some of the most important aspects of wealth creation for you personally, as a female, as a business owner, as a mom and a wife? What ways do wealth change your life for the better, and why is it important for you to have wealth?
It's so amazing that you asked that, because I think that there is this, first we start off with the belief that money's going to change us for the worst. And then we tell ourselves, like, oh no, money doesn't change you. I hear a lot of people say that money doesn't change you, it just makes you more of who you are, which is true to an extent. But money does change you. It changes you in a lot of ways, and it's up to you to decide if they're going to be good or bad.
Yes.
And I don't think it's like a blanket statement that money makes people a better person. I don't think that's true in every case, right? It's about what are you, and that's why I think that when it comes to money, I don't want to separate from the spiritual, because I want it to make me a better person. I don't want to feel like I still have stuff to prove, or feel like I'm still achieving from this place of like lack or not enoughness. I want to feel like I am creating something incredible from a place of self-love, because
Yes.
I think that that is going to make, it's not just about like, does money make me better? But I think that we're also sending out that energy where we're just making money better too.
Oh, I love that one. That's juicy, Gabby. Ooh, I love it. That is so profound, actually, that like we
Mhm.
have the opportunity to really shift and change the energy of money and how money is
Yeah.
perceived and how it's used. And I love that.
Yeah.
Any last words to share when it comes to money and wealth creation?
No, I'm so excited that you're doing this. I think it's so important to be having these conversations as women,
Absolutely.
especially entrepreneurs, because our earning
Yeah,
potential is so unlimited, you know?
exactly. And that's, I think, what's so powerful is like when we have the conversations, we're able to see what's possible. Like the
Yeah.
communities that you and I are in, where people are speaking, women specifically are speaking about wealth creation and how their lives are changing as a result of it. It's like we see evidence every day of what's
Hmm.
possible.
Hmm.
And actually, there's just such this limitlessness
Mm-hmm.
around it. And it's
Yeah.
so refreshing. It's so eye-opening. And
yeah.
So if people want to get in touch with you, Gaby, or work with you or learn about your programs, where can they do that?
Awesome. The easiest place is my website, www.gabbyabrams.com, and on Instagram, I'm gabby.abrams.
Okay,
Another
perfect.
place
Well,
that they can just DM me or message.
I will share all of that in the episode details as well. And I thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure, as always. And I just thank you for what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was so awesome.